The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. It has been a very, very busy 24 hours here in Las Vegas, and I had some really interesting conversations with other progressive media people about the future of progressive media, and I want to talk to you about that a little bit in a moment, but a few stories I wanted to mention. One is we've been talking a little bit more recently, including on yesterday's show, related to the Q1 layoff story. If that doesn't ring a bell, no big deal. Check it out from yesterday's show about the retail industry. And I've been interested in retail for a long time because when I'm trying to think now, when I was 16, I believe, I got a job at the now defunct Circuit City, an electronics retailer that used to compete with Best Buy. And I started working in selling, music CDs and just basically as a cashier. And then eventually I knew enough about laptops and computers that I got moved to doing commissioned sales of computers and other electronics. And it was a really interesting job for me, just seeing firsthand how retail worked and getting some sales experience, getting very comfortable talking to people that you're just meeting on the spot and sort of assessing how best to relate to them. And it was really a great experience for me. But I saw sort of firsthand how the old retail model was completely unsustainable. And at Circuit City, salespeople were paid on commission and often made what averaged out in commissions if you were pretty good. Anywhere between $20 and $30 an hour, of course, $30 an hour being equivalent to $60,000 a year. People at Best Buy making minimum wage or close to it are not making $60,000 a year. And ultimately, whatever better service was conferred by having more highly compensated salespeople at Circuit City could not outweigh the cost savings that Best Buy figured out by paying people what at the time was probably $8.50 an hour, and now I'm sure is much more, obviously, because the minimum wage has gone up and there have been raises and inflation. But this was sort of a preview of the fact that the retail apocalypse as a result of online shopping is continuing. And there's an interesting article in the Washington Post that points out that 75,000 retail stores, this is located, obviously not 75,000 companies, 75,000 locations that sell clothing, electronics, and furniture will close by 2026. And at that point in time, online shopping is expected to make up about 25% of retail sales. Currently, 16% of overall sales are made online. I think that this is going to be, in the immediate, obviously problematic for the companies that are going to lose out. And this is not just big box national chains. When we say retail's taking a hit, even local shops are being affected because even if you like the idea of going to your local men's clothing store rather than logging on to whatever website, The Gap, Banana Republic, J. Crew, whatever, the convenience factor is something that even the local store with its good service seems to be sort of unable to override in large numbers. Obviously, there will be people that will always remain loyal to the local stores. And I think that, interestingly, one of the companies that is dealing with the retail apocalypse well is Best Buy. And it's not a place I ever go to, but I've read a lot of long-form pieces about Best Buy, and they are sort of using ancillary services to get people into the stores and making purchases. So one thing Best Buy is doing is if you want a new TV and maybe a sound system, Best Buy will send someone out to your house to do an evaluation of what you have in the space and to make recommendations. And that is something that is better than simply buying online, going to Amazon.com and ordering a TV. And at least for now, it is not something that Amazon has decided to scale, although they easily could. Another thing Best Buy is doing that's interesting is they are partnering with other brands to have sort of sub-stores within Best Buy. So the last time I went to a Best Buy, I think I had to go get a cable or something like that. There was like a Samsung store within the Best Buy. There was something else. And I don't think retail is going to go away. I think that it is going to have to create a new value proposition. And every time that there are these significant shakeups, and if you believe these numbers, 75,000 stores closing between now and 2026, people lose jobs. That happens, and that's not, I mean, listen, we should be moving towards universal basic income of some kind in some way, shape, or form, not necessarily the way Andrew Yang suggests. We should be rethinking the relationship of people to work and the economy. All of that stuff needs to happen. So I'm not saying I don't care about people losing jobs. I care about it so much that I think our system's fundamentally broken and needs to be changed. But if we've learned something from history, it's that forcing an industry artificially to stay open doesn't seem to be an effective thing long term. And I think retail is not going to go away. I think it's just going to have to be rethought. And interestingly, I mean, I'm not a fan of these huge corporations, and I don't shop at Best Buy or anything, but they're doing some really interesting stuff to kind of get ahead of that decline that is anticipated and already happening in many ways. There's an interesting story about the National Enquirer. The National Enquirer is this gossip magazine, gossip newspaper, gossip website. They have a presence on a variety of forms of media. They are owned by American Media Inc., which is a company that we've already talked about is connected to Donald Trump in a number of different ways related to these catch and kill stories. Well, there's a sort of higher entity in the hierarchy, which is that there's a hedge fund that controls American Media Inc. And the hedge fund that controls AMI, which owns the National Enquirer, has become disgusted by the National Enquirer, and they are now looking to sell the tabloid altogether. The CEO of AMI, David Pecker, is involved in the hush money catch and kill scandal with Donald Trump. There have been a number of other sort of exploitative things, even for National Enquirer standards, that have taken place in the last couple of years. And the hedge fund that owns the company that controls the Enquirer wants to get rid of it. And this is actually potentially a very interesting media ownership story, because whoever buys it is buying not only the content and the sort of operation, but they're buying the political problems and the sort of cultural issues surrounding tabloids and the connection to the president. And there have actually been a number of high-profile people whose names have been floated, which we don't have to get into now, but you can look up if it's interesting to you. And my desire would be, again, not through regulation, not through limitations of speech, but my desire would be that there would be an awakening. We talk about fake political awakenings that people sometimes have. It would be great if there was an actual awakening amongst people where they said, I'm not going to, I just don't care about this type of tabloid. I hesitate to even call it journalism, about this tabloid content, and National Enquirer would just die out. But as we know about what tends to be popular with people, it's unlikely that it's going to happen. But I'm going to be very closely following who ultimately potentially does buy AMI and the National Enquirer and what their political orientation is. I think it could be super interesting, and I would expect some tweets from the president about it if it ultimately does happen as well. So there's been a lot of discussion here in Las Vegas about the future of independent progressive media. And to sort of summarize the perspective that everyone I've been chatting with here seems to have, I think it would be accurately summarized as recognizing that the election of President Donald Trump has been an incredible boon to progressive independent media. If you look at a lot of the sort of progressive players in the space, whether it's Our Show, Sam Cedars' Majority Report, The Young Turks, Kyle Kulinski's Secular Talk, podcasts that don't necessarily have a YouTube component, there has been whatever sort of level of growth existed up until November of 2016 and January of 2017, it has been a hockey stick for us and for most of them. Now, does anyone want to see Donald Trump reelected in progressive media because we think it'll be better for our businesses? I've not talked to a single person who has said that or even implied it. So, number one, it's nice to know that even though we recognize that Trump has been good for our businesses, everybody I've spoken to, myself included, puts the importance of moving in the direction of fixing the country as more important than having a wacky person in the White House that helps us to have larger audiences. So that's number one, very, very importantly. Number two, though, a really interesting discussion we've been having is whenever Trump is out, okay, whether that's 2020 or 2024, or at the time of the swearing in, January 2021 or January 2025, what happens to progressive independent media? My first reaction is I don't even really need to think about that, because any predictions that we've made in the past about what the show is going to become or be or how things are going to change has been inaccurate, because it's really hard to predict what's going to happen. When we were talking about, 2 years before the end of Barack Obama's presidency, nobody thought that Donald Trump was going to win, and there was no way to have predicted that our shows would be so bolstered by such a cartoonish, farcical presidency. It would have been pointless. Whatever plans we would have made would have been thrown away because things would have changed so much. So that's number one. But number two, I don't know if this is overly optimistic, but there's the idea that the Trumpification of American politics, whenever Trump is out, has irreversibly changed the degree of interest in politics from the American public. I think that that's actually a good thing. And as a result, there's the idea that even though, yes, Hillary Clinton would not have been as catalyzing for new political engagement as Donald Trump has been, because she would have been just kind of a center-left Democrat, predictable in most ways. We would have done our criticisms of her from the further left, and everybody would have been sort of moderately happy. The idea is that now that there has been this Trumpification of American politics, if we next go to a center-left Democrat as president, that it is a changed game, and that there will be significant more interest in criticizing center-left Democrats from the further left, and that that is going to be the sort of next wave of activism. If a further left Democrat wins in 2020 or in 2024, that will also be a great thing for political engagement, because it will show that the Trump presidency was not for nothing, that it actually sort of allowed and created a situation where a further left Democrat than maybe otherwise would have had a shot was able to get in the White House. That will reinvigorate further left media to say, hey, we were actually all able to activate and do something when Trump was elected. We got a positive result. Let's now work on the next thing. So there's a generally kind of optimistic perspective among everybody that I've been talking to, including Sam Seder and others who are here, with the caveat that there are concerns about what happens if YouTube demonetization continues. What happens if there are sort of technological, systemic issues that cause problems when it comes to funding the programs in the way that we have? And, no real solutions were reached there other than we'll do what we've always done when there are financial funding crunches, which is we evaluate the situation at the time and figure out the best path forward. So far, we've done it. When demonetization 1 happened in April 2017, basically everyone there were small players that disappeared, that's not a good thing. But everybody who was of somewhat moderate size at that time adjusted and figured out how to change our business model. And there is that optimism there, although there are concerns about what is going to happen with increased demonetization. Funding issues that inevitably will come up, and being able to sort of weather that storm. But I have to say, it's a pretty positive atmosphere right now, and we're working on some cross-platform ideas with some of the other shows that are here, and I don't have anything to announce today, but hopefully I will in the next few months. That's it for today. I will join you again from Las Vegas tomorrow. We will take phone calls on the Friday show and all of that stuff. Thanks to everybody who has signed up this week, new members, new patrons, new show, new bonus show tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.